Well, Vishwa, it's amazing to have you here. Yeah, I've looked forward to this for a while since we got it on the calendar. But thank you for taking the time to kind of talk about our coaching experience together, and just being overall great friends. So I wanted to take this time to appreciate give my gratitude to you. So for anyone listening, kind of want to share the experience. So Vishwa worked as we worked together for a few months of me coaching you. And so to give a little background of how we met each other, it was about a couple years ago, 2-3 years ago, through a Habitual Roots conference or a little meetup that was going on. And we grabbed dinner, grabbed some drinks, and then had a couple more meetups. And then we started hanging out every now and then. Yeah. But every time we did, it was a lot of deep conversations. Deep conversations. So, and then a few months ago, towards the end of last year, 2022, reached out like, hey, are you looking for anyone to work with? Is there anyone that can help you in your life, career, etc.? And I was grateful that you took a chance on me since I was just starting out my coaching consulting practice. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess like kind of first question I have is, how is it like coaching with me? Because I know you've worked with another coach in the past before. So I think it'd be great to just your overall experience working with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, grateful and happy to be here. I think our dynamic so far in a year or a half has transcended being a friend, philosopher, guide, and just two people who really love coaching, have come together to share like all the common values of the community that is all about growth and empowering each other, and encouraging each other to be more of our authentic self. So I feel like we have been coaching each other since the day we met. I remember that the first click for us, like I was like, okay, I found a person that I can connect to in a new city that I moved to, was we went on that hiking trip with a few friends, and throughout, like, you and I were just like being like, oh, you're into coaching, and we started sharing values, common values of like integration, of like having an organized schedule that creates more energy instead of how mostly people perceive that being organized is, draining because it's a lot of structure, routine, discipline. But that discipline, once you follow through, creates so much more abundance for yourself. So I feel like that abundant energy we carried through at least for a year as friends and as two people who value coaching as a life skill in general, so that when you open up that door for me to being like, hey, I am starting my journey as a life and career coach, I was more than happy to support you, since like I like to support that community in general. But I also knew that based off of the relation that we already had going on, like the way you find if you have a rapport with a coach is if you share common values, if your mindset and thinking and the time and energy that you spend in life towards things, if they are overlapping. So I feel like that overlap already existed for the two of us, in terms of like the values of spirituality, integration, or relationship building with people, that I felt safe, and I felt like I could trust that coaching journey with you, which is how I started. Yeah, could you specify the question again?
Yeah. I mean, it's.
But this is like a good start to.
Yeah. So I guess, what made you? So there was like that relationship, that trust that we had. What made you like take the leap? Was there like any sort of things that were going on that you like to share that, like, okay, this is a good time for me to work with someone, whether he had, saw your approach or someone else approached me.
Right.
It's like, hey, these things are going on in my life that I would like some clarity on, or X transformation on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, so I was in the time of my life where I had been in my first job for quite some time, like almost a year, over a year actually, year and like 3-4 months on that. And first jobs are always a trial run. They're not usually meant to go exactly right. Like nobody goes to a job and they're like, oh, I found my perfect job that I can do for next 10 years of my life. So it was very natural for me to learn that I've been placed in this role, but it doesn't align with me because it doesn't bring out the best parts of me. And just to give context, like I think best parts of me are me being an emotional intelligent leader, my integration, my spiritual and emotional side mostly, which was very untapped in my job in IT auditing. Like, most of my day goes spending working with applications and systems, and there's hardly any human connection, so which is mostly what I crave in my job. And I already knew from our conversations that you are a deep thinker, you're a systems thinker. Alongside the spiritual and the emotional side that you have, you're very good at implementing and organizing and taking that right action towards making things happen for yourself, not in the future, but in the present moment, right? So because I had already seen you experiment so many different things that you wanted to do in life, whether it's like your iOS operating system for life, or the coaching experiences, or becoming a coach in your current job role, managing other people, and like exploring what kind of leadership styles connect with you and how you want to coach other people. That as a friend you were used to share all of that with me. So for me it was like, just transitioning, or like I could really envision our coaching relationship because I already had seen facets of that. What would that entail? So when you reached out, I was like, yes, I know I'm self-aware. It has to, what are the elements, environment and energy in the areas that I shine in, but the how is how to get there and how to find that role which is more authentic to me, brings out the best parts of me. I struggle with because I'm a heavy thinker. I'm an emotional person, so taking all that action and structuring things in a systematic way, in a more organized way, that the action is flowing through and the clarity is coming from that action, was the hardest part for me. So I was instantly, when you opened that door, I was like, yes, I could use an accountability buddy. I could use someone who can help me structure and keep me on track and help me take that action, which is the hardest part in this process, where I feel like I can do a million different things to find that next role, to achieve that dream career, whatever that next step looks like in my career. But I was thinking from like, oh, I can change countries, to like, I can talk to a million different people, I can get a whole new visa lined up. And I was thinking way too big, and you helped me kind of, you were the right kind of coach to get started with, who would ground me in my reality and be like, how can we take that next step that itself is enough to provide you the clarity and the confidence that you need to know where you're going. So in terms of that action, I really needed a coach like you. So that's where we started, and that's where I found the most support.
Appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, it was great seeing from my side the transformation. From like all those ideas that you said, like all these big picture visionary type of stuff, into all right, what can I just take this next step on and get that clarity from. And so it was great seeing it from my end within the calls, and also call by call as well, over the weeks and months. What were those sessions like on an individual basis? Because a lot of coaches will work in different ways. They have different modalities, different types of approaching different things. some will lean more into the counselor therapist type of side and asking questions. Some will be more this prescriptive consulting type of framework. And I don't think there's no right or wrong approach.
Right.
How would you label, categorize, or describe my style within those sessions and overall?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely that unique style that you have as an integrator. And since your coaching is focused more on like action-based coaching, like, like at least for me, I was in the mindset of like that this is to bring out more action and like, in my life. Like it wasn't like I didn't know exactly what to do, but it was more like structuring what to do next, which is the important question. So I feel like we would like, so just to give context, like I think it was 8 sessions over 3 months, spread it out. And initially I was feeling so much resistance that just having, like, we would start off our calls with just getting to, catch up what's going on, which I really appreciated because a lot of us are in the mindset of like, oh, if you go into coaching, you have to be, serious, talk about the goal and just stick to the agenda. But I like that you expanded the conversations to being like, so where are you investing your time and energy? What did you do in the last week that, was your highs and lows? So I think that gives a lot more context in building that rapport with each other. And then we would just go into discussing what we want to achieve. And I guess the style is also to stay goal oriented instead of spiraling into all other areas of life. So it helped that I had a clear picture. It helped that you have an alignment session as a part of your coaching where both of us can, mutually be on the same page of like, okay, this is what we're working for. And for me, the transformation statement was, I want to transform the 45 hours that I spent in my work, which are not very aligned. So it would be nice to spend, if not every minute, but most of those 45 hours towards living my purpose, living my values more actively. So yeah, like you helped me, like your style is, I think brainstorming, like we would sit down and brainstorm and clarify, bring clarity to the goal, to the intention, to the clarify vision, what we're working towards, and then ground the client, or like ground me into the present reality of like what's possible, what's been tried and tested, and how to derive those clinical trials for the certain number of period. But we didn't jump into that process either, right? Like we started off with writing exercises, which back then I was so overwhelmed and stuck in inaction that it was creating a lot of resistance within me. I was definitely feeling challenged and a little bit overwhelmed that, oh my God, I've never thought of the word commitment. And I have no, back then I was stuck in the mentality of that I don't have a relationship with commitment and accomplishment, which are, I think, the 2 core aspects of action like you shared. So even within your style of coaching is to impart that wisdom, with that practical wisdom that you have walked the walk, you have taken all that step through your journey of finding the roles or the type of career that aligns with you, that you always imparted that wisdom to me, being like, have you considered looking at in this lens? And I feel like that's the unique power of your diverse, unique self, like is that you have tried and tested so many things that you could provide the other person that direct feedback into that, hey, this is an option, this is a trial, and these would be the benefits of that. So a lot of the things that you suggested, I wouldn't have done it myself, that I could leverage off of your wisdom and experience that way and try it out for myself. So there was a little bit of that. Like, I think the brainstorming, the little prescribing, like, different suggestions of like clinical trials. And at the same time, I think you're also good at creating a positive, like leveraging positive psychology of situations. Like, I loved that you would celebrate my wins with me. You would always, like, you're a great writer, so you're part of the unique part of your coaching is that you write all the notes after the session, and they're so thorough, but they always start, at least for me, I don't know if it's true for everyone, but started with the noticing and acknowledging and making me feel seen in everything that makes me shine. Being like, oh, you went on that trip, it clearly brought out a lot in you. This is where you mentioned that this is your element, your environment that makes you shine. So kind of reminding me, okay, this is my joy. These are my strengths. So how can I work on amplifying that? And then you would go into noticing the themes that came up when I was expressing myself in this session, or the mindset that came up, and then rereading that was definitely helpful, so that I didn't have to do all that analysis for myself, and I could save that energy into taking more action. So I think the integration part, the writing part, refining things to a level that is easy to take action, all of those are like kind of the themes for your coaching style that really helped me, at least.
Mm-hmm. Appreciate that. Yeah, I love writing, and it's like part selfishly, it's for me to also get clarity. Like, what do we talk about?
Yeah.
And I never do it. At least until now, I've never done it the day of like a session. Mm-hmm. I always let it sink in for a little bit. Like, hey, let me sleep on it.
Right.
Maybe there's something that will come to me afterwards, after a day or two, that if I think about it right after the session, I may be biased or jaded, or something where I'll want to think about exactly what I thought about in the session, where I may not leave open the space for something else that I learned to go from latent to realized after a day or two. So I love the writing piece, and gives me clarity. Like, okay, now I can like notice the patterns and whatnot. So I'm glad they're valuable for at least someone.
Yeah, and it definitely gets conveyed. Like, even when I go back and reread all of it, like, you have your strengths lie in that integration and connecting the dots to create more resourcefulness for the person. Like, I already had everything within me to take the action, and within my life, like, it was just a matter of you being like, have you connected these dots that will create more abundance? And your writing kind of compiles it all together, that I'm like, okay, I didn't even realize that me expressing my who am I question this way meant all of this, or this is the kind of mindset that's coming through, that when I would read that, I could have that self check-in with myself, being like, okay, what does this mean for me? So, I mean, I could write all of that down and process it, journal it by myself, but I think that's why this type of coaching is needed for a very specific purpose. That there's the type of coaching that you write down, journal, you get to know yourself, create more self-awareness, health, healing. But this is the type of coaching where if someone else can process all of that for you a little bit and share you the themes, and then you can gauge for yourself, obviously, whether that is really true to yourself or not, then it's really beneficial that I could take that, learn what I have to, bounce back quickly, and just start taking the action. So that saves a lot of time and energy in this process.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What sorts of areas for improvement did you see, like during the coaching sessions or the writing or any other part of the overall us working together? I was like, oh man, I wish Sai leaned more into this. I wish he didn't do this. Since I'm starting out myself, and I just want to get that feedback.
Right.
And for anyone that's listening that's thinking about it, there's going to be things that I'm going to be continuing to learn, right? So I guess what stuff came up to you throughout that that you see as like areas for improvement for me?
Right. Yeah. Um, yeah, I like to think of it as areas to just be mindful of, I guess. And like you said, that you've just started, so it would just be a matter of gaining that experience and coaching a lot of different people and incorporating the feedback you get from coaching like diverse people and including being inclusive in your coaching styles so that it um, caters to more intersectional cohort. So from that lens, I feel like you're coaching and right now in your journey, um, the audience that would be better suited for would be people who have already done some level of inner work and have some level of awareness of who you are, what your values are, and what your purpose is. Um, just because when like when we're working through and we're discussing clinical trials, like you would obviously speak from your lens and your vision of these are all the things I've tried, or these are all the things I can think of that you could try. But because I had that lens for myself, that I could gauge that this is something that would never work for me because I'm like an introvert, I have emotional needs, or I have my well-being needs, that this particular clinical trial would be harder. Even though I would keep an open mind in the beginning, I would be like that's the part of this process, like trusting each other, right, and collaborating together. Like I love that about coaching, that it's never, no one's on a pedestal, like there's always to learn from both ends. That I would implement it, and then the cool part about doing something that I think was very counterintuitive for me was that I surprised myself in a lot of the cases where I was like, okay, I didn't think I had relationship with commitment and accomplishment. Like I literally told you that those terms are not part of my vocabulary. So the cool part was when you challenged me to do that, I ended up realizing that they are part of my vocabulary. If not vocabulary, they're part of my behavior. Maybe I just don't express them as part of my identity. So when I started mulling all of that into my identity, I was producing more action. So it was just a matter of having that mindset shift that I am this. Like, I'm waiting to take the action and waiting for the future to happen at some point, but I am this, and all of that just became very closer, and I kind of, started living my dreams in the present moment. So because that awareness exists, sometimes I would also come back to you and be like, yeah, last session we discussed a bunch of to-dos to do. None of them really connected to me. And it's just part of that process, which would become more efficient from both sides as we build that rapport and as we learn. Like I'm sure you learned that, okay, Vish works a certain way, like she has these particular needs, this is what works for her, whatnot. So those strategies I think could be more holistic, based off of a more emotionally driven client if you have spiritually driven or systematic thinker. So it would just be how to address or how to cater solutions, clinical trials based off of that individual would be something. And another thing I could think of is like, I love writing, I love to read, but I can see how someone might not like prefer that, like going back and reading so much again, and might feel like overwhelmed by the amount of to-dos you have to do. But then again, like I have the benefit of like being in the coaching realm for so many years that I know what to take from a coach, from a session, and how to cater it to how you want to use it, instead of feeling overwhelmed that, oh my God, Sai gave me a big list of things to do and I feel like less than. I feel like I'm not doing enough, and that's not something that you want to take away from the space. So I feel like I would just encourage like creating that space where people feel like that they are doing enough. And once people get that emotional space to express themselves, hey, what's really going on? What's the struggle? What are you feeling guilty about? And addressing all of those, I guess, a little bit inner child questions. Once you see through that or shift through those, then you can understand, okay, what type of strategy is truly going to make this person feel like action is happening. And maybe through that kind of mindset and inner work utilized in the system and the actions thinking, maybe their relationship changes with action, which happened with me, which I find is way more valuable than me actually achieving my goal, right? Like, because I learned something that now will stay with me for life. So I feel like true coaching, I mean, this is just my belief and my connection, not that everybody understands it that way, but true coaching would be you learn something and you work on yourself, or you create that awareness that makes you more self-reliant, that even without that coaching, you're independent, you can continue taking those steps by yourself. So I feel like even right now we are not coaching, but your voice or something that you might have helped me think from that identity point of view, from a mindset point of view, that, hey Vish, have you considered this? It still lingers on, is still with me, that when I'm stuck and I'm like, oh my God, I have 10 things that I could do, then I would be like, okay, what would Sai do? What would Sai say? And what question would he ask me? And how he would shift my perspective from that scarcity mindset to abundant mindset of like, these are all possibilities. How can we just pick one possibility, take the action, so it's already happening, instead of being like, I have to be completely prepared and be perfect myself to take that action. So I think that those lessons that made me more self-reliant are still with me, instead of you helping me take an action and maybe I'll do it because you were there, but it won't make me truly self-reliant, if that makes sense, because I didn't learn what I had to learn to be able to be self-reliant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all that. It's like, it's great hearing, because I know you wrote some feedback for me as well, but also there were some things in there that you just shared right now that are, I think, very valuable for me too, as I learn and experience more clients, more sessions, working with more types of people, like the holistic thinking, more inclusive of, the writing, how will that come across as, etc. So that's great insight for me as I continue coaching. One of the last questions here, is there, like, for anyone listening in and watching, what sort of stuff, or if someone is watching, what things in their life, are happening that, like, hey, you should reach out to Sai. Like, this is what's going on in their life. I may be thinking this. This may be happening externally at my work, at my life in general. Who are the people that you would recommend, if these are going on in your life, reach out to Sai? Right.
Yeah. I love that question, and it has a lot of power into it, just because it's not about like, you can probably coach a lot of different people, and your title is like life and career coach, but I feel like just based off of your life experience, I think you are an asset as a coach and as a friend, philosopher, guide to anyone who, like I said, who's in their early 20s and have been doing the inner work, or have had some level of discipline, self-control in their life, and know that this is the kind of life or lifestyle that caters and aligns to me. And while you have all of that internal abundance, if you're looking for a support and accountability partner or coach to get more clarity on how to accelerate your relationship with the outside world in what you want it to be. So back when I wanted to coach, my relationship with the external world was terrible. I'm an introvert. So it was to not only create a whole nother relationship with action, taking that action that doesn't feel overwhelming, that doesn't feel like, oh my God, I have a long to-do list of things to do, and I should be this version of me, I should be this version of me to get the next role, next job. I think you have led that journey where a few years ago you made that transition for yourself into finding a role, finding a career that you liked. You were and are a young professional in the search of like just knowing what's the right career, how to live your purpose the best. That anyone who is addressing all of those questions is feeling a little in the existential crisis period of their life, quarter life crisis as we have discussed, would really benefit from that experience and the wisdom that you already have from your journey, and take more of that action in your life. If action is the word, then you're the person to go to. Obviously, you're also the person to go to from that emotional and spiritual lens, which I personally found really important, because as who you are, those things matter to you. So even in your life, you're investing yourself in all of that, and the kind of relationship building skills that you have. I could bounce off of those because I had the very traditional, very limited mindset of like what networking means and what like my relationship with just the larger purpose network wasn't set right. So every time I would attend a networking event or a conference or anything, doing that prior work with you, being like, how can we have the abundance mindset where I show up as my whole self, and I don't undermine myself by being like, what do I have to offer to other people? Like, who am I? So I feel like that mindset shift was important. So from mentally and from just system actions thinking, both those sides, the mindset and the behavior, you prepare people to start doing the things that you want to live in the future right now. So if you're someone who is like, oh, I want to write, I want to publish, I want to do this, but you think that all of that is 10 years down the line, I think working with you can really push all of that to the present phase right now. And it's exhilarating to just be able to do all of that and surprise yourself and be like, oh my God, what the hell I was waiting for? Like, I could be doing all of this right now. I just needed the right kind of support. And you definitely provided that support to me. So really, really grateful for that.
Well, the feeling of gratitude is definitely mutual. Want to thank you for, I guess, sharing all this and being, one of the first clients that I've worked with. Mm-hmm. And, like you said, we're good friends here in Charlotte. Mm-hmm. I'm glad I came to that event, a few years ago where we met. And who knew back then that, we were going to be in this coaching engagement and then continue to be friends from there. So, and meeting your friends as well, and then both being part of the squad here in Charlotte. So all these dots that are connecting. Yeah. So definitely.
As integrators, we love that. Yeah. Just connecting the dots and finding the abundance through it.
Exactly. So I'm very grateful, very humbled by all the stuff that you shared. Hopefully this was valuable for anyone listening as well. Mm-hmm. And yeah, any last things that are on your mind before we kind of wrap up here?
No, I think we had a very holistic conversation, and I think in general, I also wrote in the written testimonial that overall coaching with you was very growth oriented, but it was just fun. I think it was adventurous, trying all these different ideas and different ways of interacting with the world, like the different types of events that we cater to, or just thoughts and philosophies. So it's a holistic process, which I like. It was entertaining for me. So even when we're not coaching right now, I'm like, it would be just nice to talk to Sai and be like, this has happened. What do you think? Because all of this is so mental and like a little bit spiritual, emotional. There are a lot of facets to the whole process that you could always benefit to discussing all of that with an accountability partner and a coach like you who would have some sort of resource ready to be like, have you thought about it this way? Have you read this book? Or have you, read my blog? Or watch this video? Or like some kind of resource, or talk to this person. Yeah, that's another thing, that you were always so happy to share your network with me, that there was always some person you were like, I know this person in this area. So because you've done that work, done that networking, young professionals can really benefit from just tapping into that and being like, hey, so I do know someone who works in marketing, or someone who works in, content creation, or anything that you're looking for. So even that's like really helpful to have for an introvert like me who doesn't necessarily go out there and meet like a bunch of people. So
well, I'm definitely an introvert too, so I'm learning the ropes and learning the skills of networking and meeting people and creating long-lasting connections and relationships along the way too.
Yeah.
Appreciate the time, Vishwa. This is awesome. And I know we'll have more conversations. So appreciate the time, and hopefully anyone watching and listening found it valuable. Appreciate the time, and we'll get back to life on this beautiful day, spring day in Charlotte.
Yeah.